The Zarantine fool didn't know what he was unleashing, as the iron fist crashed across the human's face, drops of blood spattering on the holding cell floor. The grizzled mercenary, Edward Scorer, spat a crimson glob at the feet of Commander Xanth. His icy blue eyes bore into the alien's skull, a mocking grin spreading across his battered features. Xanth's fury bubbled over. He'd been interrogating the stubborn human for hours, trying to extract information about Earth's military capabilities. But Scorer remained defiant, even in the face of torture. "You think this is a game, human?" Xanth snarled, his grip tightening on Scorer's blood-soaked collar. "I will break you. I will make you beg for mercy." Scorer's laughter filled the chamber, a harsh grating sound that sent chills down Xanth's spine. "You have no idea what you're up against, do you? We humans, we're not like your other conquests. We don't break. We don't surrender." The Zarantine commander's patience had reached its limit. He shoved Scorer back against the wall and stormed out of the cell, leaving the human alone with 2 armed guards. Little did Xanth know, this was all part of Scorer's plan. The mercenary had allowed himself to be captured, to infiltrate the Zarantine ship and strike a devastating blow from within. For months, these alien bastards had been raiding human colonies, enslaving and slaughtering innocent civilians. Now it was time for retribution. With the guards distracted by their commander's abrupt departure, Scorer seized his chance. He lunged forward, grabbing one guard's rifle and slamming the butt into his face. The Zarantine crumpled to the ground. Scorer whirled around, firing a burst into the second guard's chest before he could react. Alarms blared as Scorer burst out of the cell, snatching up the guard's weapons and explosives. He fought his way through the corridors of the Zorvath, gunning down Zarantine soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Scorer used his knowledge of the ship's layout to avoid heavily defended areas, planting explosives at key structural points. The ship shuddered as the charges detonated, causing chaos and confusion among the crew. Scorer reached the hangar bay, where rows of Zarantine fighter craft were docked. He sprinted towards the nearest one, dodging blaster fire from the hangar's defenders. He leaped into the cockpit, sealing the canopy just as a plasma bolt scorched the hull. Scorer's fingers flew over the unfamiliar controls, his years of piloting experience allowing him to quickly decipher the alien interface. The engines roared to life, and he blasted out of the hangar, narrowly evading the Zorvath's point defense turrets. As Scorer put distance between himself and the Zarantine ship, he noticed a strange reading on the fighter's sensors. The craft was equipped with an experimental cloaking device, rendering it invisible to standard scanners. Scorer grinned, realizing the potential of this technology. He activated the cloak and slipped past the Zarantine fleet, undetected, setting course for Arcadia Prime, the nearest human colony. But when he arrived, Scorer's heart sank. Arcadia Prime was already under attack, Zarantine ground forces swarming over the colony's defenses. The human defenders fought bravely, but they were outgunned and outnumbered, on the verge of being overrun. Scorer knew he had to act fast. He landed his stolen fighter near the colony's command center and rushed inside. The local garrison commander, a young lieutenant, looked up in surprise as Scorer entered. "Who the hell are you?" "Edward Scorer, mercenary. I've got intel on the Zarantine and I'm here to help. What's the situation?" The lieutenant quickly briefed Scorer on the state of the colony's defenses. Scorer's mind raced, formulating a plan. He had studied Zarantine tactics and knew their weaknesses. "Here's what we're going to do," he said, pointing at a map of the colony. "We need to lure their main force into this valley, then hit them from both sides with everything we've got." Scorer took command, repositioning the colony's defenses and setting up ambushes. He led a daring counterattack, personally piloting a captured Zarantine heavy assault walker. The massive machine tore through the enemy ranks, its heavy cannons and crushing feet devastating the Zarantine forces. The aliens, caught off guard by the ferocity of the human resistance, began to falter. Seizing the moment, Scorer rallied the human defenders for a final push. They surged forward, driving the Zarantine back. The aliens broke ranks and fled, their attack on Arcadia Prime thwarted. The colonists cheered as the last Zarantine ship retreated into the sky. As news of Scora's victory over the Zarantine spread like wildfire across human space, colonists on a dozen worlds took up arms, emboldened by his example. Uprisings erupted on occupied planets, with human partisans striking at Zarantine supply lines and command posts. The UEC, recognizing Scora's pivotal role, summoned him to an emergency session on Earth. Scora marched into the council chamber, still wearing his battle-scarred armor. The room fell silent as he approached the podium, the eyes of Earth's leaders fixed upon him. "We have a chance to turn the tide," Scora declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "We must take the fight to the Zarantine, hit them hard and fast. If we hesitate, if we fail to act, we will lose this war." The councillors exchanged uneasy glances. Admiral Vance, the head of the UEC's military arm, stood to address Scora. "We appreciate your heroism, Mr. Scora, but we must be cautious. All-out war with the Zarantine could lead to catastrophic losses." Scora slammed his fist on the podium. "Caution? The Zarantine are slaughtering our people. Every day we wait, more humans die. We must seize this opportunity." The debate raged for hours, but the council remained deadlocked, unwilling to commit to a full-scale counter-offensive. Scora stormed out of the chamber, his frustration boiling over. If the UEC wouldn't act, he would. Scora reached out to his contacts in the mercenary world, assembling a team of the most skilled and daring fighters he knew. They struck at high-value Zarantine targets with surgical precision, using the stolen cloaking tech to penetrate enemy defenses undetected. On the Zarantine-held world of Cryos, Scora's team infiltrated a heavily guarded research facility, destroying prototypes of advanced weapons before they could be deployed against human forces. At the Zarantine naval base on Thaxon Prime, they sabotaged a fleet of warships, leaving them crippled in dry dock. The raid sent shockwaves through the Zarantine High Command. Their invasion plans were thrown into chaos as they scrambled to defend their key installations. But victory came at a price. During a mission to destroy a Zarantine fuel depot, Scora's team walked into a trap. Zarantine special forces, tipped off by a traitor within Scora's ranks, ambushed the mercenaries. Plasma bolts filled the air as Scora's team fought desperately to escape. Several of his comrades fell, cut down by the withering fire. Scora himself was hit, a searing pain tearing through his shoulder as he dove for cover. In the end, only Scora and a handful of his team made it out alive, leaving a trail of Zarantine bodies in their wake. As they limped back to their hidden base, Scora confronted a grim reality. The Zarantine were more dangerous than he had ever imagined, and defeating them would demand more than he had ever given before. Scora stormed into the UEC headquarters, his eyes ablaze with fury. He'd lost good friends to the Zarantine ambush, and he was going to find the bastard responsible. For days he pored over the mission logs, interrogated suspects, and followed every lead. The trail led him to the heart of the council itself. Councillor Graves sat behind his desk, a smug grin on his face as Scora burst in. "I knew you'd figure it out eventually, Scora. You're too damn stubborn for your own good." Scora's hand twitched toward his sidearm. "You sold us out. You've been working with the Zarantine this whole time." Graves laughed. "The Zarantine are the future, Scora. I'm just ensuring my place in the new order." Scora lunged forward, but Graves slammed his fist onto a hidden button. Alarms blared as armed security flooded the room. In the chaos, Graves slipped away, escaping to a waiting ship. Scora knew where he was headed. Intelligence reports indicated a heavily fortified Zarantine stronghold on the planet Zekros. If Graves was running to his masters, that's where he'd go. But Scora couldn't do this alone. He needed a team he could trust. His first stop was Jax Reiner's hideout. The burly mercenary was cleaning his weapons when Scora entered. "I'm in," Jax said before Scora could even ask. "Those Zarantine bastards have it coming." Next, Scora tracked down Zeke, a brilliant hacker who'd crossed paths with the mercenary before. They found him in a dingy bar, hunched over a datapad. "I can get you into that stronghold," Zeke said, his eyes never leaving the screen. "But it's going to be a hell of a fight." Scora gathered his team aboard a stolen UEC stealth ship and set course for Zekros. As they approached the stronghold, Zeke worked his magic, hacking into the base's security systems and opening a path inside. Alarms blared as Skora and his team raced through the corridors, gunning down Zarantine soldiers. Cybernetic abominations, half machine, half Zarantine, lurched out of the shadows. Jax blasted them apart with his shotgun, while Zeke overloaded their circuits with a pulse from his datapad. They fought their way to the heart of the base, where they found Graves and his Zarantine allies waiting. At the center of the room stood a towering monstrosity, a genetically engineered super soldier bristling with weapons. Skora and his team opened fire, but their weapons seemed to bounce off the creature's armored hide. Jax charged forward, drawing his vibroblade, but the super soldier swatted him aside like a rag doll. Zeke, seeing his friend fall, let out a desperate yell. He sprinted towards the super soldier, a plasma grenade clutched in his hand. The creature turned, its glowing eyes fixing on the hacker. "Zeke, no!" Skora shouted, but it was too late. Zeke leaped onto the super soldier's back, jamming the grenade into a gap in its armor. The explosion tore through the room, engulfing the super soldier in a ball of plasma. When the smoke cleared, both Zeke and the creature were gone. Skora and Jax, battered and bloody, cornered Graves. The counselor begged for mercy, but Skora's eyes were cold. "You betrayed humanity," Skora growled. "You don't deserve mercy." A single shot rang out and Graves crumpled to the floor. As Skora helped Jax limp out of the stronghold, the weight of their losses hit him. Zeke was gone, sacrificing himself to give humanity a chance. And the super soldier was just the beginning. The Zarantine had dark plans, and they were farther along than anyone had realized. Skora knew what he had to do. The UEC had failed humanity. It was time for a new order, one that would unite the colonies and take the fight to the Zarantine. The battle for humanity's future had only just begun. Skora strode into the UEC council chamber, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. The faces of the councillors were etched with worry and doubt as he approached the central podium. He slammed his fist on the surface, the sound reverberating through the room. "The Zarantine threat is greater than we ever imagined," Skora declared, his voice unwavering. "The traitor was just the beginning. They have been planning this invasion for years, and they will not stop until every human colony is under their boot." He activated the holographic display, revealing the intricate web of Zarantine military installations and supply lines that he had uncovered. "We must strike now, before they have a chance to regroup and launch another offensive. We must take the fight to their doorstep and end this war once and for all." The councillors murmured amongst themselves, their eyes widening as they took in the scope of the Zarantine Empire. Admiral Vance stood, his brow furrowed. "What you're proposing is no small feat, Skora. It would require the full might of the human colonies, working together as one." Skora nodded, his gaze unwavering. "That is exactly what I am proposing. We must unite under a single banner, put aside our differences, and fight as one. It is the only way we can hope to defeat the Zarantine." The room fell silent, the weight of Skora's words sinking in. Finally, the council's leader, Prime Minister Zara, rose to her feet. "The council recognizes the severity of the situation," she said, her voice firm. "We hereby authorize the formation of a united human fleet, with Edward Skora as its supreme commander. The fate of humanity rests in your hands, Commander Skora." Skora saluted, a fierce determination burning in his eyes. "I will not fail you, Prime Minister. I will not fail humanity." With the full backing of the UEC, Skora threw himself into the task of assembling the greatest fleet humanity had ever seen. Ships from every colony, every faction, rallied to his call. Battle cruisers, destroyers, and carriers, armed to the teeth with the most advanced weaponry the human race had ever developed. At the heart of the fleet stood the Retribution, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the mightiest Zarantine warships. Skora took his place on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the view screen as the fleet assembled around him. "All ships prepare for jump," he ordered, his voice steady. "Our target is the Zarantine home system. We will not stop until their empire is nothing but ashes." The fleet surged forward, tearing open a wormhole in the fabric of space. In a flash of blinding light, they emerged in the heart of enemy territory, the Zarantine homeworld looming before them. The Zarantine fleet was waiting for them, a vast armada of ships bristling with weapons. Scora's eyes narrowed as he took in the sight. All ships, engage the enemy. Let's show these bastards what humans are made of. The battle was joined, the void of space erupting in a maelstrom of fire and death. Scora's fleet fought with a ferocity that the Zarantine had never seen before, their ships darting and weaving through the enemy formation, hammering them with relentless barrages of missiles and energy weapons. But the Zarantine fought back just as hard, their ships armed with weapons that could vaporize a human vessel in a single shot. The Retribution shuddered as a volley of plasma torpedoes slammed into its shields, alarms blaring on the bridge. "Shields down to 50%, a crewman shouted, his face pale. "We can't take much more of this." Scora gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He had to find a way to break through the Zarantine lines, to punch a hole in their defenses and clear a path for the ground assault. And then he saw it. A weakness in the enemy formation, a gap that they had overlooked. "All ships concentrate fire on Sector 7G, he barked, his eyes blazing. "Pour everything you've got into that opening." The fleet responded with a vengeance, a storm of fire and metal converging on the weak point in the Zarantine lines. The enemy ships buckled and shattered under the onslaught, their hulls splintering into a million pieces. "We've broken through," Scora roared, his heart pounding in his chest. "All ground forces, prepare for planetfall. We're going in." Dropships and assault craft poured from the human fleet, hurtling towards the surface of the Zarantine homeworld. Scora led the charge, his armored form at the head of a phalanx of human warriors. They hit the ground running, weapons blazing as they charged towards the capital city. Zarantine soldiers swarmed to meet them, their weapons spitting death and destruction. But Scora and his warriors were unstoppable, a relentless tide of human fury that swept aside all resistance. They fought their way through the streets, the air thick with smoke and the stench of burning flesh. Scora led the way, his rifle barking as he cut down Zarantine after Zarantine. His armor was scorched and battered, but he barely felt the wounds that he had sustained. All that mattered was the mission, the final push to end this war once and for all. At last they reached the Imperial Palace, a towering edifice of black stone and gleaming metal. Scora kicked down the doors, his warriors pouring in behind him. They raced through the halls, gunning down the Zarantine guards who tried to bar their way. And then they were in the throne room, face to face with the Zarantine Emperor himself. The alien ruler was a towering figure, clad in armor of shimmering gold and wielding a massive war blade that crackled with dark energy. "You dare invade my sanctum, human?" the Emperor snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You will pay for your insolence with your lives." Scora raised his rifle, his eyes cold. "Your empire ends today, Emperor. Humanity will never again bow to your kind." The Emperor lunged forward, his warblade flashing in a blur of motion. Scora dodged the blow, rolling to the side and coming up firing. The Emperor staggered as the bullet slammed into his armor, but he kept coming, his blade whirling in a deadly dance. Scora fought with all the skill and fury of a born warrior, his rifle blazing as he ducked and weaved around the Emperor's attacks. But the alien ruler was fast, and his blade was a blur of deadly energy. Scora felt a searing pain as the warblade sliced through his armor, cutting deep into his flesh. He staggered back, his vision blurring as he fought to stay on his feet. The Emperor loomed over him, his eyes glinting with triumph. "Kneel before me, human, and I may yet spare your miserable life." But Scora only laughed, a harsh, defiant sound that echoed through the throne room. "I will never kneel to you, Zarantine scum, not now, not ever." With a final desperate surge of strength, he lunged forward, driving his combat knife deep into the Emperor's throat. The alien ruler gasped, his eyes widening in shock and pain as he collapsed to the ground, his lifeblood pooling on the polished stone. Scora slumped back, his breathing ragged as he felt his own life ebbing away. He had done it. He had struck the killing blow against the Zarantine Empire. But the cost had been high, so very high. As he lay there, his vision fading, Skora saw the faces of all those who had fought and died beside him. Jax, Zeke, and countless others. He saw the worlds that had been devastated by the Zarantine, the lives that had been shattered beyond repair. With his last breath, he whispered a final warning to the surviving Zarantine, his voice a hoarse rasp. "Never again underestimate the resolve of humanity. We will fight to the last to defend what is ours." And then he was gone, his body still and lifeless on the throne room floor. In the days and weeks that followed, the human colonies began the long, slow process of rebuilding. The Zarantine, their empire broken and their military shattered, were forced to accept the terms of a harsh peace treaty, one that would ensure they could never again threaten the safety and security of humanity. Across the colonies, Skora's name was spoken with reverence and awe, his sacrifice remembered and honored by all those who had fought and bled alongside him. Statues were raised in his likeness, his deeds etched forever in the annals of human history. The galaxy had been forever changed by the war, the scars of the conflict lingering long after the last shot had been fired. But humanity had emerged stronger, united in a way that it had never been before. And though the road ahead would be long and hard, they knew that they would face it together, as one people, one race united in their determination to forge a better future for all. If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.